interconnected and interrelated in a beautiful symphonic way. His teaching, for me, has great relevance to the understanding of medicine and healing. So hopefully in the future I'll be able to give, maybe I'll touch upon it a little bit tonight, about my understanding of medicine and healing through the prism of Rabbi Ashlad's thought and teaching. And it will give us great insight into the practice and into the understanding and even the practice of medicine and where it needs to go down the road in the future. So let's begin with the basic teaching of Rabbi Ashlad. There are many ways to present his teaching, many different angles. I had to pick one, so this is the one that I'm picking. If I would be lecturing on a Wednesday night instead of a Tuesday night, perhaps it would be a different spin and a different angle. But eventually it will all come together. So we're going to start with, what was God's, Hashem's purpose in creating the world? And if you studied the Ramchal, you can get a similar answer. And basically, Rabbi Ashlag says is that the sole purpose of the creation of the world was for God to bestow His beneficence, His goodness to His creatures. Now, it's not merely receiving all the physical benefits. That's a very minor in comparison to the real beneficence that we will ultimately receive from our Creator, from God. And that is to cleave to God, to be connected, to be united with God, with Hashem. And the way to do that is by being similar in spiritual form to the Creator. Meaning, when our qualities is similar to God, then we become one with Him, and we are one with the Creator, and we receive that highest benefit and beneficence of being at one with the Creator. But in order for us to receive all of God's beneficence, which was in God's thought at the original creation in the Ein Sof, His thought was to bestow His beneficence to all His creatures, that everyone will receive total goodness. That was His thought. And that thought is eternal, and it goes beyond space and time, and it goes beyond past, present, and future. Irrespective of what we seem to be experiencing in time, God's thought was perfect, and it's beyond time, and it was to bestow His beneficence to His creatures. But this, in order for us to receive all of God's beneficence, it necessitates a will or a desire to receive. Why is that? If we have no desire to receive, then of what benefit is it that God gives us? If we have no desire for it, there's no benefit in it for us. We don't desire it. It's extremely rare, but sometimes in medicine we find that there are people, sometimes children, that they have no desire to eat. And no desire. And it's the worst form of disease, because if there's no will to eat, there's no life. So we see that what fundamentally characterizes human beings is a will to receive. Without this will and desire to receive, we can't receive God's beneficence. So God had to create, along with His desire to give to us, a concomitant will to receive. Otherwise, it's useless for Him to give us all His beneficence if we have no will or desire for it. So the only thing that God created in this universe is the will to receive. There was no other part of the creation. All God created, the only thing that's new, that we call yesh me'ayin, something from nothing, is the will to receive. Because the will to receive for oneself is not found in the Creator. It's not found in the Ein Sof. What characterizes God, of course, is just the will to give. That is the definition. If we can give a definition of God, that is what characterizes God. The will to receive is not found in God. It was a creation of God. That's all that was created. Whatever else we see around us emanated from that will to receive. We had a will to receive. Animals have a will to receive. Plants have a will to receive. The inanimate world has a will to receive, of course much smaller. And from that will to receive, all of the light of the Creator emanated into these vessels of the desire to receive. So what's contained within us in terms of the light is all godliness. So in form with what's in us is no different than God Himself. So that which is contained within us is no different than God Himself. It's part of God above. It's the will to receive and the desire to receive that differentiates us from the Creator, and it's really the only thing that was created. But however, in God's mind, in the original thought of creation, He does not see us as beings with a desire to receive. He sees us in our corrected form, which is the desire to give, that we become like God in that we are just givers. He had to create the desire to receive, otherwise we couldn't receive His beneficence. But on the other hand, in order to be like God, so that we can be one with Him, and then ultimately be united with Him and receive His greatest beneficence, right? Because the greatest beneficence is when we're at one with God, when we're totally united with Him. Ultimately, we would have to convert or transform this temporary will to receive to the will to give, the desire to give. So you can see that there's a purpose for everything. There was a purpose for the creation of the desire to receive, so that there could be a creation. And the purpose of it is so that we have a desire to receive God's beneficence. Otherwise, we're like that poor child with this disease of not wanting to receive anything, and then life ends. But on the other hand, in order to be exactly like God, so we can be one with Him, we ultimately have to convert and transform this temporary desire to give to a desire to bestow and to benefit others. But what Rabbi Ashlag repeats many times is that in the thought of the Creator how God sees us in His original thought. He sees us in the corrected form. So from God's perspective, and ultimately it should be our perspective, is that who we are is like God, and our essence, who we really are, is we're like God in that we have the desire to give. That's how God thinks of us. That's important to know, because we don't think as highly of ourselves as God thinks of us. God thinks of us much higher than we think of ourselves. Because what's in God's thought at the beginning of creation was who we would become in the phase of rectification, when we transform the will to receive just for ourselves to the desire to impart and to give to